Hey guys, I just wanted to announce that I'm starting a Patreon at patreon.com/Shelmar100101. As you can see on the link on the screen or in the description very below. It's obviously not mandatory, but if you want to go and support me, you can. Yeah, you can see what perks are available there if you click the link. If you want to support, I appreciate it very much. If you don't, then that's fine regardless. But onto the video. I lived in a house that seemed to be haunted by doppelgangers. Every event that happened never involved some mysterious figure, but a known person being in a place where they should not have been. Here are a few examples. I was a teenager at the time, and I was instant messaging my girlfriend at the time with my webcam turned on. I had the viewer up so that I could see myself in the webcam. Behind me, there was the stairs leading up, left of camera view, and the entrance to the living room, which was right of the camera view. My younger sister would typically fall asleep every night on the couch in front of the TV and make her way up to the bed in the middle of the night. At one point in my webcam view, I saw my sister leave the living room and go up the stairs. The thing that struck me as odd was that I didn't hear anything. It was an older Victorian house, so the wooden floors and stairs were loud as fuck. Without saying anything to my girlfriend, I got up and looked into the living room, and there was my sister passed out on the couch. I sat back down and asked my girlfriend if she had seen anything in my camera. She said, "Yeah, I just saw your sister go upstairs." My family was all getting ready to go somewhere. I was sitting in the car with my mom, and we were waiting on my sister who was still in the house. After a bit, she comes out and gets in the car and just looks at me like, "The fuck?" I asked her what's wrong, and she says that just before she walked out of the house, she thought I was still inside, so she yelled up the stairs that we're leaving. And apparently I yelled back, "Okay, I'll be down in a minute." My mom woke up to someone tapping her foot, and she said someone was standing at the end of her bed who faded out after a couple seconds. She said that it looked like me. I also had an encounter where I woke up and felt like someone was under my covers, laying up against me. When I said something, my blanket visibly deflated and I no longer felt anything. When I was 22, I was in the military and I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. It still took like a year after diagnosis to separate from the military, but I went home on leave for the holidays about a month after the diagnosis. Anyone that has insulin-dependent diabetes typically carries around some sort of kit. Mine is a black zip-up pouch and it has a glucometer, insulin pen, needles, and alcohol pads. Right after I left home to head back from leave, my mom texted me to ask if I'm missing my diabetic kit. I look and I'm not. She sent me a picture of a diabetic kit and asked if I know it. I've never seen this kit before in my life. Apparently, my sister went into her bedroom and discovered it outside of her window, propped up like someone had set it there. Oh, also, her bedroom is on the second floor. Nobody else we know has diabetes. When I was 9, I was staying home alone. It was early morning. I just got out of the shower and brushed my teeth. I put on my favorite outfit, set up a little area in the living room with my drink and a snack, and turned on the TV to watch. The phone rang. I went across the house to answer. The voice on the other end was familiar and very comforting. He asked about my day so far and made small talk. After a minute or so, he said, "I like your outfit. Is pink your favorite color?" I replied, "Oh, thank you. No, it isn't. What were you planning on watching on TV?" It took me a few seconds to understand what was happening, as I was only 9 and very naive. The voice on the other end of the phone changed. It became deep and raspy and horrific. The voice then proceeded to describe my murder in graphic detail. I went numb. My skin felt as if it was on fire. My heart was racing. I'd never been more terrified in my entire life. I slammed the phone down and called my mom at work. I tried to explain what had happened, and I'm sure I wasn't making much sense. She got onto me for answering the phone and told me to go back about my day. I remember trying to explain that he was watching me. He told me what I had been doing. He told me what I had been wearing. I mentioned that I was going to call 911 because I needed help. That isn't necessary. I'm not coming home. Just don't answer the phone and go watch TV. I hung up. I was confused. I was scared. I could feel eyes on me. I pulled the curtain closed. I raced around the house and was torn between doing what I felt was right and doing what I'd been told by my mother. This whole time, the phone was ringing. The second it would stop, it would start again. The sound of the phone ringing would pulse through my tiny body like electricity and practically paralyze me. I was frozen and on fire at the same time. I waited for a pause in ringing and called 911. I'm home by myself and I'm 9, and someone is watching me and he's going to kill me. She tried to keep me calm. She told me she would send help. I remember standing there listening to this kind voice trying to help me, but I could feel every horror movie scenario playing out behind me. Was he creeping up behind me with a knife? Was he going to shoot me through a window? Was he going to throw a rock through the glass and open the door? I couldn't breathe. I couldn't feel my body, but I was also overly aware of my skin. In a moment of panic, I set off the alarm to the house and ran outside. I remember this sense of relief, but also this overwhelming feeling of having separation in my reality. The house felt small and dark and dangerous and cold. Outside felt open, safe, and warm. I could hear lawnmowers, birds chirping. It was a beautiful break from the bone-chilling feeling of the phone. It was like I was watching a movie and I could see myself experiencing both of these environments at the same time. A neighbor was pushing his child in a swing. He was concerned. He let me stand next to me and he protected me. I could hear the sirens, the blaring sound getting louder and louder as they grew closer. It felt like it took an eternity, but the police arrived. He walked over to me and asked me what happened. I did my best to explain, but so many of the words the voice on the phone used were embarrassing. I couldn't bring myself to say such adult words to a police officer. His other words were bone-chilling. I couldn't say those either. I could still hear my young voice repeating. He was watching me. He said he was gonna kill me. Not long after, my mom's car pulled into the driveway. She, for some reason, decided to come home. She didn't look for me or come speak to me. She calmly got out and walked over to the police officer. I was standing in the doorway from the house to the garage facing the driveway. I could see my mom, the police officer. I was watching, trying to understand, trying to figure out what was happening. And then I saw it. Her laughter. She was laughing. My face was swollen from tears. My heart was still racing. My skin was on fire. And my mom was laughing. I slowly crept closer and overheard. I'm so sorry about this. She just got scared from being home alone and overreacted. What's happening? What did I do wrong? Did I imagine this? Was this a dream? Should I not have called 911? Did I overreact? My memory of what happened after this is hazy. I remember refusing to stay home alone, the sound of the phone ringing rippling through my body. It wasn't something I liked discussing. I refused to repeat what had been said to me by the voice over the phone. My mom decided she knew who did it. She didn't even know the details. There was no investigation, no one was questioned. She told me it was a boy my age who lived across the street. I knew it was impossible, and no matter how much I protested, I was always told it was him. Many years later, after I was an adult with children, we were at Christmas. Everyone was in the living room and I had gone back into a back bedroom to change a diaper. As I walked out of the room, then back into the living room, I could hear my mom laughing, her voice as if she had been telling a joke. The faces of everybody in the room told a different story. Discomfort, anguish, shock, fear. Yet, she was still laughing. It felt as if I was walking in slow motion. One of my older children stopped me from entering the living room and started pushing me back into the room I had just come out of. She just told the story of you being home alone and the man threatening to kill you. She told it like it was a joke, like a funny story from your childhood. I never learned who I had really been. I deal with my fear of ringing phones and phone conversations on a daily basis. One night I was watching The Conjuring at home with my little sister when we heard someone putting in a key at our front door and opening it. We were sitting in the living room next to a sliding door that was very close to the front door, so we both heard it very clearly. Now, this didn't alarm us since we knew our dad had really soon gone out to get some stuff, so we just assumed he had returned. "Dad, you're back already?" I casually asked. No response. "Dad?" I asked again, thinking that he had not heard me the first time. Again, silence. At this point, I get the feeling that something isn't quite right, and I could tell by the look on my sister's face that she was quite nervous as well. I note that up to this point, she had spent the evening rolling her eyes at horror movie cliches, and she very rarely gets scared. We looked at each other for a moment, wondering what we should do before we started hearing a few more scattering sounds from the right, outside the sliding door. I was frozen in fear by this stage. I tried one more time in a louder but shakier voice. "Dad, is that you? Please respond, I repeated in my head, but the silence continued. Now at this point, I'm freaking out, and I literally jumped off the couch. My sister also abruptly gets up and starts rapidly walking towards the other end of the room, which leads to the kitchen area. She later revealed to me that she was planning on grabbing a knife. She had this horrified look on her face that I hadn't seen before. We looked at each other in a nervous silence. I didn't really know what to do, and I didn't want to make any further sounds. I finally decided to walk up to the sliding door and began opening it as slowly as possible, peering into the darkness. I know, I literally became the idiot who investigates the unknown, creeping noise without anything to protect myself with. When the door was finally open wide enough, I poked my head out and scanned the corridor, preparing for the worst. To my surprise, there was no one there. But what was more strange was that the front door was still completely shut. We never heard the door close. My sister and I were obviously both extremely relieved, as we were almost certain that there was an intruder in the house. After this, I immediately went to go ask my mom, who was situated in her bedroom at the other end of her house, if it was her or whether she'd noticed anything. She told me that she thought my dad had come home as well, as she heard someone open the front door. Around half an hour later, which felt like an eternity at the time, as we were still quite shaken from the incident, my dad finally arrived home and confirmed that he had not come home earlier. To this day, my sister and I still have no idea what happened that night. My husband and I own a martial arts school, and the building that it's in, which we also own, is about 130 years old, next to a church. And I never, and still don't really, there has to be another explanation, believed in the paranormal, but the things that happened in it just didn't happen to me. It was a decrepit, which was why it was so cheap to purchase, and we basically did all the work ourselves, old, creaky, and drafty. Still knob and tube that we had to get an electrician to change out. So here's a bunch of things that happened. When we'd be working with like drills and electric saws, I'd hear the tinkling of a music box, and I'd stop everyone to ask if they hear it too. No one else did, so I assumed it must have been some music from the church coming through. 2. My husband would often hear a woman's voice calling his name from the bottom of the stairs. It's 2 floors, a basement and a loft. And thinking it was me back from work, would always ask it to come up. Turns out the building was empty, and happened about 4 or 5 times. 3. One night, there was a small apartment on the 2nd floor connected to a large hall. We woke up hearing what sounded like a broom sweeping across the wooden floors in the large hall. My husband got up to check, but once he would walk in there, the sweeping sound would stop. It happened 3 more times that night. We chalked it up to mice or squirrels. We did find mummified squirrels in the attic once. We had a barbecue in the backyard, and I needed to get more utensils. There's a metal staircase from the backyard up to the 2nd floor, and then there's a main entrance staircase opposite to that. I came up the main entrance and heard footsteps pacing back and forth across the far end of the hall, and thought my husband came up from the metal stairway to get utensils with me. It was dark and I couldn't see anything. I called out for him and the pacing stopped. No response, and then the pacing footsteps continued. Annoyed, I thought he was messing with me, so I flipped on the lights and all the utensils from the shelf where I was hearing the pacing crashed down to the floor, like I spooked something. But there wasn't anything, not even a rat like I thought there might be. One Saturday morning, my husband was on his computer in another room. I'm in an apartment playing with a Tamagotchi app on my iPad when I heard the stereo sitting in front of me click on and a girl's voice started talking from it. I thought he controlled the stereo from his computer, so I ignored it because he often puts on music to work out before class started. He teaches the morning class. I do remember thinking, what kind of weird ass indie music is he listening to anyways? Because the voice just said, "Hi, my name is..." I thought I heard Katie, but I'm not 100% sure because I wasn't paying attention. I've never known a Katie in my life. "I am blank years old. I'm from blank," etc. I didn't catch the specifics because I wasn't really listening, but that went on for about 2 to 3 minutes until it suddenly went, "Something's hurting me." When I caught that, I looked up and squinted at the stereo. Like, what? Something's killing me. Something killed me. At this point, the hair is standing on the back of my neck, and I'm getting up from the couch to take a closer look. Please, someone tell my parents, tell the teachers, tell the corrections officers. At the word corrections officers, I just bolt into the other room and start yelling at my husband and cursing him out, because I was certain he was playing a trick on me. Told him, we don't fucking play jokes about dead people, and he was all, of course, looking at me like, what the fuck? When he finally calmed me down long enough to get what I heard out of me, and what I was accusing him of, he told me it was impossible and led me to the stereo. It's not plugged in. I thought maybe the stereo picked up signals from an ebook or something. So after that last fiasco, I went to ask our live-in student who lived with his girlfriend in the basement apartment of the building if anything weird happened. They shot each other an alarmed look and told me this. 1. His girlfriend was sleeping one night when he was working overnight. She heard some footsteps come down the stairs, and the door open and then close. All of a sudden, a bright flashlight shines in her face, and she can just make out the silhouette of someone who she thought was her boyfriend because he's tall, and she can see the dirty jeans he's wearing. She's annoyed thinking he's messing with her, so she's swatting at him and telling him to stop. Finally, she gets so pissed off, she rolls, turns on the lamp, and there's nobody there. 2. They sometimes hear footsteps on the first floor when there's no one in the building. They had a pet mouse at the time, and whenever that happened, it would start doing backflips in its tank. However, when class is going on and there are people in the building, the mouse didn't care and just went about its mousy business. 3. They were play wrestling one day when suddenly, their African gray parrot ruffled his feathers and in a really alarmed voice asked, "Who's there? Who's there?" I thought it was funny at first, so our student looked at the bird and pointed out to the door and said, "You mean over here?" and ran towards the door to open it. As he did that, all the books that were lining the shelf on the way to the door fell over in front of him, and the light started flickering. The bird and the mouse both got spooked and were throwing themselves against their cages. Our second live-in student, after the first one got married to his girlfriend, got their own home and had a baby. Several times could just not find his phone when he woke up in the morning when he had placed it next to his bed the night before. He would search his room high and low, and then he'd find it perfectly placed out right outside his locked bedroom door on the floor. I thought he might have been sleepwalking, but his girlfriend says she'd realize it if he did since she's a very light sleeper, so don't know what that's about. Nothing notable has happened since then, but we've also not had anyone stay there overnight in years. When I was younger, I used to take naps upstairs, but by the time I was 8 years old, I absolutely refused to go upstairs. The upstairs had 2 large closets, attics. They ran from one side of the upstairs all the way to the other side on both sides. It was essentially a crawl space that was maybe about 30 feet long, let's say. I started one day when a friend and I went crawling from one side to the other with flashlights as kids normally do. Then I saw a girl sitting there, in the corner acting like she wanted to play with us. I know a lot of people say when they see a ghost, they aren't scared, just interested. Nope, I was beyond terrified. This girl looked normal, had blonde hair, a nice dress, and seemed friendly. I stayed silent, kept crawling behind my friend, and got out the closet. Told him what I saw in there. He said he didn't see it, but felt like he didn't want to go back in. Then my parents would occasionally send me upstairs to get something, and when I would get up there, I would see the door swing open, as if they were trying to get me to come inside. I would lose toys and wouldn't be able to find them anywhere. Suddenly, my parents would be fishing out Christmas presents out of the attic, and we would find someone with toys in there. I remember being 8 years old. My parents are asleep still in the morning, and I leashed up my dog to go take on the monster in the attic. My dog, usually up for anything, refused to go up to the top step into the attic. My parents never believed me with all the weird things that happened in that house. I would get blamed for things that happened all over the house, leaving the lights on, toys all over, things I knew I didn't do. Well, anyways, we'd move out of there when I'm 10. About a week passes before the new owners calls us and asks if the house is haunted. My daughter sleeps upstairs and she says that she's been playing with a blonde-haired girl at night. My parents laughed at how crazy these new homeowners must be. To make an already long story short, the girl started appearing in other parts of the house for them. They kept in contact with us. They would look over while watching TV and see the girl sitting on their daughter's lap, etc. They looked up on the computer the past owners of the house, found an old dressmaker that lived there, and yep, a picture of the little girl wearing one of the ladies' dresses. The family that moved in there was absolutely torn apart by the events. Got divorced, dad stayed living in the house, and ended up taking his own life at that house.
Big up to all my peoples. I done dug into my bag of tricks, came up with some different skits. Not your average mafia, I be on some different shit. You know I'm pimping shit that make you use your mind. So if you can fill in the blanks, do it when it's time. Come on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Feel like I'm in hell, but I wish I wasn't. Yeah, you got it, now knock it while I rock it. I stick plugs in the socket and money in my. Yo, I get psychotic when you try to diss my staff. No props for your